Hey everyone, welcome to the table. You like that picture, Rodney, on the front there? I love that picture of the table. But
Yeah, beautiful. Looks like an outside setting in California, like Napa Valley or somewhere.
it
Just
does, it does.
beautiful under some
Beautiful
oak
picture.
trees.
Yeah. So welcome in, Rodney. Rodney and I have been friends for a long time, and just thought we'd have an off-the-cuff conversation and see what comes from it. I know we've had a lot of good conversations over the past couple months, and yeah, had a good conversation fishing too. Although we
Yeah,
didn't catch any fish, but that
the
happens.
conversation was better than the fishing.
That's right. That's not a high bar to hit, though. Really,
I guess not,
the
right?
fish weren't around, but we had some good conversation. No, it was a really good time. But thought Rodney was willing to come in, spend a
Yeah,
little time, and talk a little bit, and then share on this podcast. A little bit. I guess what prompted the conversation was the conversation him and I had about a coin
yeah.
a while back, and Rodney leads a lot of groups for Pure Desire, obviously, and he's in a different position there now. But I know you're still leading a lot of groups, I think, right?
Yep. I'm not currently in a group right now, but this last 6 months, I've ended a group and just haven't started back up, but hope to do that again here. But the concept that we had kind of talked about, Tom, was this whole issue of masturbation. And of course, Tracy and I wrote a parent book, my wife Tracy, How to
Mhm.
Talk with Your Kids About Sex. And we write a lot on that whole subject of masturbation because I really feel like that's one of the hardest conversations for parents to have with their kids about how they would articulate this whole subject matter,
Mhm.
because there hasn't been a lot of really great communication that has just kind of come down from our family or our faith community, other than just maybe a little bit stronger of a negativity towards sexuality.
Mhm.
And so, for many of us, when masturbation gets connected to pornography, that addiction begins to set in on the brain. Or when masturbation is hyper focused on, and it's just a coping mechanism. And typically that happens in that adolescent age when a child is
Mhm.
developing and they don't feel maybe great about other aspects of their life, where they're getting other good hits of dopamine or
Mhm.
serotonin or oxytocin, where they would bond. They just look for, they can hypersexualize in sexuality,
Yeah.
just because of the nerve endings, in the clitoris or the head of the penis. And so it just creates this hyper focus to where it's where they get their dopamine hit.
Right.
And it could be again a self-soothing behavior that has just kind of been a poor habit that's not serving them well now as they grow.
Mhm.
And so we write about masturbation from a self-soothing point. The clinical definition, or the medical, is the stimulus of the vagina or the penis with or without orgasm.
Mhm.
So masturbation is considered just
That's a key, right? With
yeah,
or without orgasm.
right, manual stimulation of your body, of your genitalia, with or without orgasm. So
Mhm.
the question is, how long does the stimulation happen to where it becomes what Christians would think of as sin? You
Mhm.
follow what I'm saying? Like, at what point? And then sometimes stimulation can happen just because of our the age, and we're hitting puberty, right?
Right.
And the wind blows a certain direction and
Yeah. Right.
creates stimulus for the young man. And
Mhm.
so just trying to think through about, and this is why I like great voices like Cliff and Joyce Pinner,
Mhm.
that not demonizing all of our sexual feelings as lust and evil, that some of that's just a part of how our body is working. We can be aware of our sexual feelings, but steward our behavior in healthy ways, if that makes sense. I really
Mhm.
love that language
Yeah.
that goes around stewardship. So many times in groups, when I work with men who masturbation has been connected to a chronic compulsive behavior and pornography, and it's their self-soothing, way of just regulation because of all of life's internal stress,
Mhm.
what's going on inside their own mind or heart, or external stress, things that have happened in their world. They can hyper focus on this area. Um, So I just try to say that, like, if you make something taboo, then it creates more of a allure to it because it's taboo.
Mm-hmm.
But if you bring down the taboo and say, the majority of people masturbate, that's kind of a common practice all throughout the world, and just start having conversations about it. I have three grandkids now. Three. I just had a third one.
Oh, congratulations.
And, sometimes you can see grandkids sucking their thumb, or children sucking their thumb when they're young. Sometimes that's just it's a self-soothing behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that they do to help self-regulate, or they'll have a blanket that they just love, that security blanket.
Right.
You'll hear the term, right? And so as they grow, they learn other ways to self-care. They learn other ways to care for themselves. And if my grandson, was still sucking his thumb in junior high, I would say, "Hey, Louie, come here. Pa's going to teach you something different here," And so that's kind of where, Tom, I would like the conversation to go a little bit about a little tool I've tried to help guys with.
Yeah.
Group.
Love that tool.
Who realize that masturbation is my go-to with or without porn. And some of the research or things I've seen is that masturbation with porn, or just porn itself, is more detrimental to the brain, those images in that sense. So I say to my guys in recovery group, I call this like, I'll get a coin and I'll say, "Hey, in my group, this is your free masturbation coin," right? And then they're coming to stop their compulsive behavior.
Right.
And the leader of the group is saying, "Well, in my group, you get a free masturbation coin," And so I try to say, "Hey, there's some rules around this. First of all, realize that this has been a compulsive behavior that you've given yourself to, and it's been destructive in you and the lives of your family or spouse, if you're married, or your relationships. And then, secondly, you're wanting to kind of outgrow this behavior, or realizing that there's a lot of shame around your sexuality." And so I say, whenever you're wanting to masturbate, instead of hiding it and then coming to group and lying, or coming to group and feeling so much shame, you just get to use this coin. So here's your coin for the week or the month or whatever it is. But then I say, before you use this coin, now you got to understand the rules. This is the key part right here, Tom.
Yeah.
Understanding the rules. Are you with me so far?
I'm with you. Should I write these rules down?
Yeah.
That's why we're recording.
Right. So, the rule is, like, typically your spouse would know that you're in a group if you're married, and that you're getting help on this area, and not wanting to make this taboo, but wanting to lower shame in order so that you can learn and grow. When I remember going through therapy 29 years ago, and my therapist would say, "Rodney, when you relapse, I want you to actually befriend that so that you can learn from it." And you keep wanting to just, your favorite scripture is forgetting what's behind, pressing on to what's ahead. And that's not serving you well. So how can you befriend something in order that you can learn from it and not necessarily make that mistake again the next time, or learn, become a student of this? So I say to guys, here's your masturbation coin. Here's how it works. Tell your wife that Rodney's giving you a masturbation coin. And in order to use it, your wife's going to be on board. But in order to use it, before you use it, you got to call me first. So you're going to use the coin. And there used to be something called pay phones. Some of you don't even know what those are.
Yeah, right.
You would deposit money in, and you would pick up the line. So anyway, they call the group leader and they say, "Hey, I'm about to act out, but I wanted to use my coin." I would say, "Well, you can't leave a voicemail and then use the coin. You have to actually talk to the person." And then as you're talking to the person, in this case, it would be me, I would say, if the individual, let's just call his name John. And I would say, "Well, John, what's going on inside of you? What are you feeling?" And I noticed, Tom, right behind you on your chair is the feeling wheel, right?
Yeah, right.
So there it is. What are some of the emotions that you're feeling inside of you right now? Can you just explain that to me? Again, we have to feel to heal, right? This is part of the mantra. And they're sharing their feelings. And then I would say, "Well, John, what's going on in your external world, in your life? What's happening around you that's maybe causing some of these feelings. So now they're sharing about, well, the dog died, I had to put the dog down, or the car broke down, or fill in the blank, right? Life has stressor points. The wife and I aren't getting along, or whatever it may be. And I would say, okay, thank you for sharing that. Now, then I would say something like, John, have you ever masturbated before? And he looked at me like, Rod, you're crazy. I'm in group.
I'm in group for a reason.
Right, for 15 years, or whatever, since I was 12 or whatever. And typically at the end of that behavior, how do you normally feel about yourself? And when it's connected to porn or you're objectifying other people, what are some of the emotions you feel when you're done with this activity? And it's normally self-loathing or a self-critical sense of shame and regret. And here I am again, doing this again. And so I say, I just want you to connect that when you act out this way, what are the feelings connected to it? And then I like to ask the question, this is what we learn about in group. What else could you do today besides using this masturbation coin that at the end of that behavior, it creates a little bit more self-soothing? It actually is a caring event or activity that you could do for yourself, that it may not give as much dopamine, but it may give some oxytocin, a sense of self confidence, and a sense of positive self-esteem in a good way, a reinforced worth and value. And this is in group what we call commitment to change. These are all the things that we're doing proactively that are investing in ourselves. And I can just think of some of mine over the years, Tom. Maybe 3 walks a week with my wife, or doing some sort of form of exercise, or whether that's push-ups or running or whatever they may be, or going to the gym, or clean a car, or clean out a garage, or clean a closet, or clean a drawer. And I used to say to myself, well, it seems like my life's falling apart, but my garage sure looks good, right? And I would just say, because now you've taken a small step toward an action in your world that's positive. A small step toward an action in your world that's positive. And that when you're done with that, it reinforces a good sense of self-worth and self-being. And sometimes I think we just go to masturbation because we just think of all the dopamine to our brain. And then it just creates this cycle of addiction to where we binge purge instead of saying, today I got up early and I did some reading. I know that when I just do reading and read, I can literally feel how that affects my brain and actually becomes a self-soothing thing for me. So reading can be a good tool, but whatever those commitment to changes are. And I find that if you can talk about that with a person and say, okay, in this case, John, right, this hypothetical person, say, hey, John, go ahead and read, or go ahead and clean, or go ahead and exercise, or go ahead and pick up the phone and talk to somebody about that. Take a positive action towards your world, that when you're done, you'll feel better about yourself. It'll reinforce your sense of worth and value. And so the coin really isn't giving people permission to act out as much as it's giving people permission to befriend it and talk about it beforehand. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Because you know what happens if you don't, and you do, and you use the coin, you're most likely going to have to tell your spouse, you're going to tell your group, and then you go back down in that addictive cycle of shame. And
you're going to go back down in that addictive cycle of shame. So, part of that just was masturbation was not seen as a taboo for my wife, Tracy, as she was growing up. It was just had no negativity around it. And of course, didn't really make the connection with pornography in that world. So I'm not talking about masturbation and pornography. But for me, in my healing recovery, and again, this is descriptive, not what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not making a subscription.
Okay.
Subscriptive. Help me, Tom. I lost the word here.
Prescription?
This is not a prescription for you to do.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just describing my lived experience.
Yeah.
So don't go home and tell your wife, hey, Rod's
Right,
wife said
that's
it was
okay.
okay. Go for it. You know, I'm just telling you my lived experience in my
Yes.
own recovery.
Yeah.
But my wife would say, Rod, if you choose that behavior to masturbate, think about our memories of our connections together. Don't look at porn. And then
Mhm.
when we get together, we can talk about that.
Mhm.
So when I would get together and talk to Tracy about it, I still felt a sense of shame around it just because that activity always felt shame. It never felt like I was
Mhm.
just learning about my body. Somebody had told me what this was like and told me about the dangers of not connecting it to other things.
Right,
And
right.
it wasn't something that I outgrew. But as I would talk to Tracy about it, it was kind of like that coin.
Mhm.
I could talk about it and realize that I connected it to her, but I didn't. I actually wanted to outgrow the behavior. It wasn't that I couldn't anymore. I
Mhm.
didn't want to anymore.
Right, right.
You know what? What else could I do that would actually benefit Rodney? Because I would much rather connect with Tracy sexually
Mhm.
than just feel my sexual feelings or feel an orgasm myself.
Right.
And
Right.
so, in my own mind and in my own lived experience, it was just like, I think I don't need this coin anymore, right? And
Mhm.
I let go of that behavior, saying I would rather connect with this person, and then finding other things that were self care, that created self awareness and self care. Of here's other things I can do to care for myself instead of having to use sex as a way to care. If
Mhm.
that makes sense,
Yeah, it
or
does.
cope, I should say,
Or what?
or cope.
Yes, coping
Yeah,
mechanism for
yeah,
sure. I think the struggle is, especially in groups. Groups are, people are in a group for a reason because
yes.
they've used it compulsively, and it's hard for them to stop. And then if they just say, "Well, I'm just, thinking about my wife, so it's okay to do that," and then you realize, okay, is it? Yes, you have that conversation about the coin. Is that a behavior you want to continue? Is that serving you well, or is it serving your marriage well? If it's not serving your marriage well either, then you got to think about having that discussion.
I
You
think
know?
those are all things that you have to evaluate. And of
Mhm.
course, the medical aspect of this conversation, and then each couple having their own, living out their own convictions with this. If that's not something your partner's okay with, then I think you
Yeah.
know, you're kind of violating the covenant of that aspect of that. And
Mhm.
so I think there's something just about being able to outgrow a behavior and realizing that sometimes the language I would use are maturity versus immaturity.
Mhm.
Um, in certain aspects, that may fit well. Or is this healthy or unhealthy for me?
Mhm.
And wanting to choose something that's healthier.
Mhm.
Um, but I think sometimes when we demonize our sexual feelings and our body, this is where I think part of the problem can be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. So, question is, how many times did somebody come back and use the coin?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. To my case in point, no one has come back and used the coin. And I think this is where, because it is such a taboo subject matter, the thought of befriending something on the front end and helping grow through it is hard for people,
Mhm.
because we're pushing something as far away as we can, hoping it'll just go away on its own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when you have young children and they're growing in their adolescent behavior, I think it's better for the parent to communicate about masturbation. You
Mhm.
know, the stimulus of your genitalia, with or without orgasm, explaining what all that is. So when and if a child has that experience, that it's not so, oh my goodness, this must be evil, no one's talked about it. How do I learn to talk? How do I learn to navigate this?
Yeah.
No one's talking about it,
I gotta keep it in secret.
except the porn industry, right?
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
talking about it and they're demonstrating that. And
Yeah.
so just downplaying that your body is evil, physical body, and that your sexual development is a normal part of how you grow and mature,
Mhm.
not demonizing the conversation, but helping your child know this area, like anything else, can be mismanaged,
Oh, yeah.
or it can become problematic for you.
Mhm.
And as a parent, then if you could simply say, here's my lived experience, here's
Mhm.
how shame around my sexuality didn't help me. And it just drove me farther into this addictive
For sure.
behavior.
Yeah.
And then it got connected to porn or got mismanaged with other people or whatever the history is. I think you're offering your kids something much better.
Yeah.
Than just
Well,
silence.
if you don't talk about it and you keep it secret, what's the
Again,
next step? It's going to evolve into pornography. It's going to evolve into that secret sin that becomes growing even more and more underneath the surface.
Right.
Because you can't talk about it. How many conversations have maybe you had with your father, or I can't remember one conversation that I had from my parents about any kind of sexual conversation, let alone talking about masturbation or pornography.
Yes.
Just wrong.
Right. Or a wet dream, or your body's going to do what your body's going to do.
Exactly.
And just to prepare you for that. If that happens, this is a normal thing. So when you think about like Jesus, the Son of God, as a fully man, fully human, right, we know that when he entered puberty, that his sexual organs begin to function the way God made them happen. That I would simply say that Jesus, in my opinion, you can disagree with me, it's okay, probably woke up from a wet dream and said to his dad, Joseph, what the heck happened in my loincloth today? What is going on here? And, and Joseph, however they navigated that conversation back in those days, but his body was functioning like any male body would function.
Yeah.
And so normalizing that, again, not creating taboo around sexuality, but actually learning how to befriend it so that it becomes something that we can manage in a much healthier way. And I'm not talking about sin management. I'm talking just about sexual management. Those are two different things. And sometimes we think about, well, you're just trying to do sin management. No. I'm talking about just like we manage our money, or we manage our time, or our sleep, or the intake of food, more or less. Life is about stewarding a lot of the gifts that God's given us. How we steward the earth, how we steward all kinds of things in our world, relationships and time. So it's really that concept that I'm trying to get people out, and that just the masturbation coin, if it can be a way where you can get guys in your group to at least begin to call and talk about it, right? So I'll tell you a story of my wife kind of using this with me one time.
Yeah.
I was traveling in Oregon on a speaking event, and I was back at the hotel room. And so food is another coping mechanism for me sometimes, right? And so Tracy I was on the phone with Tracy, and I was just thinking about Dave's Hot Chicken. It's a chicken place in Oregon, and it's spicy chicken, delicious,
Yeah.
And he said, well, Rod, you got your free coin. You can use your free coin. And she started talking to me through like this whole masturbation concept. Rod, what else could you do besides get out of bed at 10 o'clock and go through a drive-through and get chicken, right? What else could you do besides that right now?
Yeah.
And so she's like, now you get a choice. You can get up and go to Dave's drive-through. It's okay. No shame around it. But what else could you do? And just that concept of saying,
that's a good example.
It gets us out of the limbic part of the brain, Tom.
Yep.
And it gets us into my prefrontal cortex, right? That's what the conversation does. It helps get you back into prefrontal cortex. And when when I go offline on mine and I'm limbic, I can tap into yours, my group leader, or my wife, or whoever that can say, you know what, I can make a healthier decision today of how I can steward or manage this part of my life in a better way. So it's just a concept of like helping us think through decisions of what we're doing and why we're doing those. And again, I'm not here making a statement that masturbation is always evil or sinful in every situation, medical, single, or married. I'm not making that statement here today. The statement I am making is that for many of us, it has been destructive in our life because it's been a coping mechanism connected to pornography or taking us outside of the relationship with our spouse. And it's something that we have to learn how to understand. And I think this goes to arousal templates and all of that aspect of just learning how to, what we never got from a younger age, and maybe a little bit more of a developmental healthier context to see our body and the stewardship of our body is good.
Yeah. I think I have those conversations so many times with guys in group, with couples, with whoever, of just having the conversation, because like you said, it's always taboo. And if you
Right.
can, and most guys will say, oh, well, she knows, she's okay with it. Or is she? But just even having and talking a little
Yeah.
bit further about that. What does it
Right.
look like? What is it
Right.
serving you? How is it serving us?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's have a
Exactly.
conversation. It's all about conversations.
Yep. And I think that's where I would encourage couples. That's why if a couple takes our book or any book on sexuality or sexual development
Mhm.
and just read a chapter out loud to each other, because sometimes, Tom, we're not comfortable
Mhm.
having conversations around sexuality
Yeah.
or in any aspect, our thinking on sex, sexual feelings, sexual behavior. We're just not comfortable with any of that. But if
Mhm.
a couple could say, hey, Tom and Michelle, how did your mom and dad teach you about masturbation?
Mhm.
Was it from a positive perspective or more negative?
Right.
What's been your lived experience with it? Was it helpful or not helpful? And a Tom, Michelle can talk about that as a couple, lower shame on their own communication. That's even a healthier place. And Tom,
Mhm.
what I find, most couples can't talk about that,
Mhm.
especially in religious circles,
Yeah.
because again, there's so much taboo around the subject matter, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so this is where I was just kind of shocked about my wife's saying what she said in my early recovery, but she just didn't have any negativity around the subject matter for
Mm.
her. That wasn't a practice for herself. She just, as she thought of it, she didn't see it necessarily as something innately evil, just
Right.
understanding how your body works.
Mhm. That's good.
But the more you can just have those conversations, and then parents, whatever your values are, right? If it is always wrong in every situation, medical, married, or single, if that's your value,
Mhm.
then help communicate to your
Exactly.
kid instead of just creating more shame on them because they're not getting it right.
Mhm.
Right? How would you help them maybe begin to outgrow? Or if you loved God more, you wouldn't do this,
Yeah.
right? Pray more, read more.
Mhm.
I don't think that's going to be helpful.
I don't think so.
It
Not at
just
all.
feels like they can't jump over the bar enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so anyway, there's just a lot of scenarios there where I think that conversation could be better and could
Mhm.
be more helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, we do a lot of disclosures, as you know, and a lot of couples coming into disclosure don't even, especially him, realize what the definition of masturbation is. So you can see how it's already progressed to the point where it has coming to a disclosure, and they don't even know what the real definition of it could be or what it does involve.
Right.
So defining that early on, having that communication, that talk is, you got to have it at some point, even if it's, after D-Day or coming
Right.
up into this, into what we're in.
And God puts strategic nerve endings in our genitalia. They feel good, and that's why little kids, when they're bathing or when they're just walking about, they'll be preoccupied with their genitalia,
Mhm.
always touching themselves, right?
Mhm.
And so, when is it appropriate to do that? When is it not appropriate to do
Yeah.
that? And just kind of helping guide through that, and realize that at some point they're just trying to self-soothe, and you can help them even at 4, 5, 6, finding other ways to self-soothe,
Mhm.
other ways to self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, read a story, give a
Mhm.
hug, cook something together. But that connection point, that point of releasing oxytocin or releasing dopamine or
Mhm.
letting them find new experiences of self-care, or sharing about when something's not going well in their life,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
realizing how good it feels to connect and to share our problems and to
Yeah.
have a empathetic listening adult or caregiver to
Right.
help that child kind of navigate through that season, whatever that is.
Mhm. Mhm. That's good. Good
Yeah.
stuff. So now we all have something different to, not you, but us, go through in our group. We get with the coin. We're
Yeah,
starting 2 new groups
I guess
next
it would
Tuesday
be a
night.
challenge. I would just say if you can lower shame around the subject matter and give an object lesson to say you can use this,
Yeah.
because I can't keep you from it. I'm just trying to get you to stay in your
Think
prefrontal
Mhm.
cortex and think about what else could you do that would be beneficial. Many times this has been a limbic experience that
Yeah.
we go to.
Yeah.
And staying conscious with anything, I think, is a part of our spiritual life of just being self-aware and self-care.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to do that. We gave out coins every year at the retreat.
Yeah.
Men retreat.
Right.
Now we know why.
Right.
That's the
Exactly.
explanation behind it. So we're going to have to explain it this year.
Yeah. Begin to talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
I was sharing just a little bit of a hard weekend I had when we came on this call, and man, Tom, it's taken me a long time to be okay with not being okay.
Mm-hmm.
To say I'm not doing well right now, and I'm not sure what's going on, but here's what's happening, you know.
Yeah.
And just there's a connection that happens when we just know that for Rodney to hide doesn't make Rodney healthier when things are going well. But when Rodney can be aware of what I'm feeling and process them with other people, that in itself becomes helpful for us.
Absolutely. So healthy.
Yeah.
That's healthy for you and healthy for me.
It's just it's just like, that's caring for ourselves. That's learning how to love ourselves well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I'm a proponent of self-love, not narcissistically, but just self-care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Other-centered, self-giving love, not selfless, like myself doesn't matter.
Right.
No, self matters a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Jesus at times broke away from the crowds or found a place of solitude. What was he doing? Self-care. You know, taking a nap in a boat, right?
There you go. What better place?
Self-care. Yeah, exactly. Fishing wasn't good that day either, I guess, right? So,
something to that, I guess.
So anyway, I hope this kind of concept isn't about, Rod Wright is permission to masturbate. I'm simply saying, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's befriend it to learn, and let's realizing that we've kind of used this as a coping behavior. What are some other things we could do to care for ourselves that at the end of the day might be more beneficial for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Rodney, I really, really appreciate your time. I know you got a busy schedule, and always good to have a conversation like this. And
always good, Tom. Right. But I hope you hear the spirit or the heart behind why I'm sharing this.
Absolutely.
Because I think ultimately at the end of the day, for me, it was much easier to outgrow this behavior a couple decades down the road in my rearview mirror here. And it's not evil for me, just a behavior I would choose not to do and outgrow it. And much better to kind of connect with my partner.
Absolutely.
And not just sexually, but in all ways.
Absolutely. Intimacy, for sure.
Yep, exactly.
All right, brother. Appreciate your time. If anybody needs to get a hold of Rodney, check him out at Pure Desire, Rodney at puredesire.org. Correct is your email?
Yep. Rodney at puredesire.org. You got it.
Or reach out to us at tom@tableministry.com or tableministry.com for our website. So thanks again, Rodney. Appreciate your time.
You bet. Take care, Tom.